Hey, if you're watching this right now, hit share if this adds value to you. Make sure you like it. If you haven't liked our page yet, hit like on there. We're gonna go live.
Like.
If you're brand new, my name is John Dahl, and I'm the worship director at Good Shepherd Church in Moorhead. And this is Nolan Weiss here, and we are co-founders of Red River Leadership, and that's a platform where we train and we coach and we work together through questions with churches on technology, on worship, on music, all the things that are just changing so quickly, and how we can keep God at the focus, keep worship at the focus of what we do, but use some of these new technologies to reach our message out to more people. We have such an incredible opportunity right now to spread the love of God and the message of Jesus Christ anywhere using the internet, and it's really incredible, and we are fired up about it. So hence Red River Leadership was born, to help kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of things. And so every Friday we're doing a Q&A, so we're taking questions that we've had coming from churches, and we're going to address the questions as we go, talk through them, give our recommendations. And as always, we encourage you to comment below any questions you're running into. This is a dialogue. This is an open conversation about how do we do things the best ways we can do them as the church. We also are pushing everything out to YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, you're a YouTuber, head over to YouTube, find Red River Leadership. The link is in our description here, and make sure you subscribe there. Because we are bringing out content there all the time that we hope is valuable for you and to you, that you can then spread with your team, share with your team, and we can all grow. That's the goal. So Nolan, do you have anything you want to add right away, or should we dive right into the first question here?
No, that's great. I was just sharing.
Yeah.
Because that is the power of the internet.
That is the power.
We're super excited to do this, and I just love these questions that are coming in. So again, if you have any questions that you see your church, your worship ministry struggling with, or some obstacles that you see, we're here to help however we can. And there's a good chance that we already failed through it several times over.
Yes.
John's not like this, but I'm one of those people who it doesn't take one failure to figure it out. I have to do it several times to make sure I really know that it's not going to work. So we've really learned how not to do it, and that is what this is for, to help you get through that obstacle without having to find all the ways that don't work.
Right. Totally. Well, I think we should jump into our first question here.
What is that, John?
Yeah, we get a bunch that come in, so email us anytime, comment questions below, and we're going to kind of pick them as we go here. So first question: pre-COVID, we had a lot of trouble staying organized as a worship team. We have binders and boxes full of music, and I felt like we still made so many copies of the music. I see a lot of people using iPads nowadays. Are there better ways to stay organized?
That's a great question, John.
It really is.
And I just think
sounds like funny. Me 10 years ago, like for real.
This is me right now.
Yeah.
Except I use the tools, but I need all the help I can get. Staying organized.
We were chatting about this beforehand, and we were like, "Oh man, we are not very well organized souls ourselves." So we were like we were just laughing about it, like, man. I was definitely in this situation a handful of years back, and I was reaching out to churches asking, "What are you doing here? How are you organizing music?" We have 13 binders and boxes full of tunes, and I keep making copies of stuff. Like I can completely relate to this question. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a church that said, "Dude, Planning Center is what you need to be using." And I was like, "What's Planning Center?" And he's like, "Oh my gosh." So that was a big deal. Planning Center.
Online.
Yeah, planningcenteronline.com. Go there, and if you have no idea what it is, do your research. You don't have to just take it from us, but it was a game changer. We use Planning Center for absolutely everything. You can put your worship music in there. You can have your scriptures built in there. What your sermon topic is for that week. If you're in a teaching series like Nolan's church and my church do, You can put all your information there for your teaching series, any notes that you have for the production team. Again, it's just kind of this central hub spot for everything worship and planning.
I love
and there's an
how
integration. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love how not only for our worship teams, like we can send them invites and they can tell you if they're available or not. They can block things off. So you're communicating with your worship team, but not just that, you're communicating with your pastors. You're communicating with, we do like ushers and people who are doing liturgy and cantors and the choir director and whoever needs to be part of that. So you're all on the same schedule. It's a one-stop shop so that everybody knows what's going on prior to what's happening, and then they can follow along either on their mobile device or on a sheet of paper that's printed out. And we've got our tech teams, people who are doing the slideshows for presentation, the people who are doing lights if that's necessary, the people who are doing sound, the people who are doing cameras, all have the same order of worship with all the details in it beforehand. So they know exactly what's going on, so we can execute to the fullest extent.
Right. If you can spend less time planning, worrying about where's this, who's responsible for this, what's happening over here, you can spend way more time being in the worship and leading that worship to the fullest of your ability. It's just such a big deal. The integration they have with Song Select is probably the highest functioning piece we use, or the most, you know what I'm saying? We use that every week where you click on that song name. So if I'm a guitar player in the band, I would log into my Planning Center account after I've hit accept that, yes, confirming I'll be there for this coming Sunday. I can access then the worship music from home, and I can practice it at home. I can see what key we're going to do it in. I can print it off at home, bring my own music. So suddenly now they have the control of all that music. So you're not sifting through all these boxes of copies of stuff at church anymore. You can put on your team, hey, you're responsible to bring your own music on Sunday, or you're responsible to create your own binder. One of our electric guitar players prints it at home every week, puts it in his own binder, and he just saves that binder. So he has his own binder of music. And I know a lot of people go that route and have gone that route for a long time. But this gives you the opportunity to do that. And on top of that, they have an app called Music Stand, Song Select does. And on Music Stand, you can be using an iPad. So that question mentioned an iPad. You can use an iPad or a phone, and you can have your chord chart right there on your iPad or your phone. So you're never printing again in that case. I don't know the last time I printed music for myself. I use everything on an iPad or on a phone now.
And what's neat about that is if you are going through rehearsal with your team and I would say we're going to change this chord to this, or we'll do this order, you can write in those notes. And then when you come back to that song the next week or 3 months down the road, it's saved in there. So if it's like, how did we do that again? Oh, we wrote it in here, and that song saves the notes that you have created.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. And
it is really cool.
On the sort of nerdy musician side, if you're playing a song in B flat, and no guitarist really loves to play in B flat, you can save a capoed version in there. So the bass player and the keyboard player are playing in B flat, but you can set it so there's a capo version so that the guitar player can say, okay, I'm going to play in G in capo 3, and it has that all there for you too, which is just slick.
Right. Absolutely.
And as we get to this time, we're just over 2 months before Easter here, which is crazy to me how fast this year's been flying by. But this is about the time where we start planning extensively for Easter. We've already kind of got our ideas, but now we're going to really dig into that. And so my pastor could say to me, remember what we did 3 years ago? And if I were in binders and a notebook, I would have no clue. But with Planning Center, you just go in, and you say the last 3 years, you go back to the Easter service, you bring it up. Usually I'll bring up the last 3 years. So every year for the last 3 years, print them out. And then we take the ideas we like, make our new thing, and then build it again for this year in Planning Center so we can look at it again next year.
Right.
It's super slick. I mean, it makes people who are unorganized like me feel and look organized.
Yeah, it makes it look a lot more organized.
Right.
I agree. And it takes time. There's a learning curve. So, I mean, there's all these solutions with it, but what you've been doing for years is what you've been doing for years. So either way, it's trying to figure out how to migrate that into a mobile friendly solution that you can access on your phone anywhere. We were just chatting a little bit ago about, what are you doing for your recording session next week? In 15 seconds, I could pull it up on my phone and see what it was, what we're doing, what keys we're doing them in, like what it's going to look like. And that's a big deal, especially in today's world. And if you're not moving that direction to get things more mobile, better connected for your team, well, then you're not doing it right. You're not taking it seriously enough, in my opinion.
For those who have traditional services, you could certainly still use the hymnal. I've got this here for my recording that I'm doing in a little bit for our hymn library. But you could also, as we're doing both, I'll just put the hymn that we're doing and then scan in a picture of the music and then put it in. So if you're going from a traditional to a modern, you can see them both on your screen and make the same notes. But then, when we have a live in-person worship, traditional worship, I wouldn't put the hymns. I would put the names of the hymns in and then give it to our organist, who's me. But if we had somebody else, but you could have them on the iPad too. That's totally something, so that if the person who you're having play that week isn't able to get a hymnal, which might be weird, but I'm just giving examples. You could have them on there so they could just log into their iPad and play it from home.
Right. Right. Connectivity, better communication. There's less room for error in communication. I mean, there's many times you think about, I thought we were going to do this liturgy, or I thought we were going to do this song, or I thought we were going to have this person was preaching on this text. Well, now you have a central hub spot where your pastor goes to and puts in their text, where they're going to go with their message. You come in as the worship director or the music director, whatever your situation is, put in the music that you're going to do. And it's just, again, it's an online, ever-changing platform that you can
and especially like for smaller churches, the cost of it is super reasonable.
Right.
I've never had any complaints about it. You think about all the paper that you're saving, all the printing you're saving, all the headaches that you're saving. But I think it's like it's pennies for your smaller congregations, and it kind of goes up in chunks.
I remember
after that.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember doing where we would text out on like every Wednesday or whatever. I don't remember what days of the week it was. We would text this out, and then I would email this out, and I would try to get confirmations. Then I would try to email the music out in advance, and then I would try to do this in advance. And it was like, it's hours in just music and people management that you have to put in every week. And that was just normal. That was just part of what the job looked like at the time. So to find Planning Center online services, it's wild how much time that saves you, that you can then start doing things that you never thought you had time to do before, because now you have the time to do these things. It sends out automated reminders to your team. Hey, be ready for rehearsal at this time this week. Like that just gets sent out automatically. You set the reminder one time. Hey, I want everyone on this team to remember, every Sunday morning team, to get an email on Friday morning. Hey, get ready for this weekend. It's going to be awesome. We're pumped to have you there. Thanking them again. Whatever it is. So there's, and I think they're going to keep evolving. They're a company that has grown big time. Churches have obviously taken on their services. They've done well, and they keep like evolving and coming out with new features every few months. So I mean, I'm really pumped to see what they do in the future too. So highly recommend them.
I've gotten to meet those guys, and they're so passionate. Like they're
and are most of them pastors? where they
They're
were
in
before.
ministry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the different products that we're recommending
Hmm.
through these different Q&As. We're talking about presentation next week. We already have a lot of questions about that. But most likely the ones that we're recommending are people who work in the church and then create tech for the church, knowing the
Right.
needing the hurt, knowing the obstacles that need
Right.
to be addressed, versus a tech company who's trying to market something for a church, which there are out there. And that's one of the benefits of this, is that we've already gone through those and figured it out which ones are the
Right.
best. But we love that because they work in the church, they struggle through the struggles we have, and they created it
Yep.
for all of us. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of Planning Center and music planning, Nolan, what songs do you have coming up? I mean, like, so what are some of we had a couple questions about that a few weeks back about just favorites in music. What are you seeing be effective online? Is online looking different than in person in terms of musical engagement? We don't have to dig too far into that, but just in terms of song choice and kind of why you're picking the songs you are.
Yeah. So this week, if we have any church people from Calvary watching this, spoiler alert.
Spoiler
Got
alert.
All Creatures of Our God and King. Just a rad. That's the word I'm going to use. Just a rad arrangement of it, but it's just wonderful. The Father's House. We just started doing that one, and it's going really well.
Yeah.
And then a song called Yahweh, and that's a Ren Collective tune. Slow, reflective, breathing you in, Yahweh.
Right.
Just beautiful. The next week we've got Come Thou Fount, Waymaker, and Yahweh again.
So what I'm hearing here, just to bring this up too, like you're doing a mix of hymns and brand new contemporary.
Yeah, we're kind of hitting from hundreds of years ago. One of the oldest hymns we do is A Mighty Fortress, and we do that one every once in a while. So that's over 500 years old. And then
you have like a newer rendition of it though.
Yep.
Like
and then the Father's House is within the last year here, and everything in between. And sometimes we take those traditional hymns and do them up a little bit, and sometimes we take the modern songs and we bring them down a little bit. Other times they're full bore. As far as the modern music goes, sometimes we just do piano and a voice and a harmony for the traditional.
Right.
And there's different ways of doing this. We're completely online right now, but we just really wanted to focus on unity. We really wanted to say, we're going to take great grandma Ethel and 13-year-old Lucy and put them in the same worship. And yeah, it's not going to hit everybody's favorite song. It's not going to hit every person's favorite liturgy or favorite style. But in a world that feels so divided right now, in a world that feels so not connected right now because we're over screens, we wanted to have one experience where we could worship the same God, the God of unity, in one service together. And so that's been a lot of work to fuse that all together. And sometimes it works better than others. And so even when there are people who are like, I really didn't like that arrangement, or I really don't like that song or that style, but I really appreciate what you're doing and how you're doing it, and that we can do it together. And so that's been our focus over since March, so almost a year.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, we've taken, we've got a strong contemporary service and we have a strong traditional service, and we have worked hard to keep them to really specialize on both of them, to bring you a nice solid traditional service that you're going to get hymns and organ and choral arrangements, very small group choral arrangements. Initially we cut all choral activity, But recently we started bringing in small groups, 6, 8 people massed up, spread apart, the whole thing. Um, but anyways, we've been able to dig into that portion of things, and we have an organist who does a really nice job working with the teaching series we're in to get hymns that are very, along those lanes and along in those veins. In terms of contemporary, it's interesting. If we would have talked 2 years ago, how online has changed so much from the in-person experience. I think I pride myself. I think one of my strong suits is leading a room and reading the room at the same time and going, okay, did that work? Were people singing? Like, do we have a nice engagement? Was the vibe there? It's hard to explain what that is, but there's kind of this thing that happens when a room connects with a song. And I think so much of that is how you lead it as well. But there's some of these new songs that they're hard to sing. They're tough to sing. And I'm not going to be the guy that's like, no, we're not going to do it because it's new. Like, obviously I love new tunes, but like, there's a need to make sure that it's singable. I want you, if you've never been in church before, to be able to hear a song and by the second chorus, like be able to sing along or at least get close. And then by the third, and I like that about Christian music. A lot of it gets repetitive. So like you can hop onto the chorus by the end of the song if it's brand new. But anyways, so things have changed getting online. For most of this last year, we stuck to a lot of the stuff we knew. We didn't do a lot of brand new stuff. We would introduce a couple new ones here and there, but a lot of that was due to our team's availability, how much time we could rehearse. If we're going to pull a team together to do anything, what we're going to do, probably not spend most of it rehearsing, but spend as much of it as we could recording to get the music and the worship out to people. But with our last week here, we had This Is Amazing Grace, Phil Wickham tune, nice singable song. We had Holy Spirit, and then we had Build My Life. And those ones have been pretty well received, I think, by our church, that people are really liking. This next week, we're recording Your Love Awakens Me, The Blessing, Beautiful Things, Great Things, and The Father's House, which Nolan, you'd mentioned that too. I think that's one of my favorite songs right now. I love The Father's House. It just really speaks to what I love about it during COVID is that it says you're in the Father's house. And typically that would be saying we're together, we're gathered in this building, we're lifting up the name of God together in the Father's house. But now we're saying we're together in this worship moment, wherever we are lifting up, that we are in the Father's house. And so it's just a cool, like, kind of change in perspective of how you lead some of these tunes. Like, before it's kind of thinking about, like I said, being all together and lifting up praise together, but now we're together online, and we need to take that seriously and live into that and like own that we are leading worship online. Mm-hmm. I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Would you say how you approach each song has changed at all from in person to recording?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, we laughed early on because we would record one, and then we'd all kind of go, man, it's so much different without people in the room. Like, this is what a bummer. Like, man, we just don't have the energy. And so I like kind of stopped us and turned around and said, we need to bring more energy to like bring, the people off their couches or get the kids dancing at home. So I said, envision the kids that we know would usually be dancing right over here in this worship space, that they're at home dancing. Like, have that in mind as you're recording these things. My gestures are the same because I want you to feel like you're a part of this. I mean, there's a lot of things that you just have to think about differently, but in the same way, you just bring more of the energy than you normally would to it. So I think it's definitely bringing more than normal, which I think and I hope as our team develops and people are back in person again is going to mean we're going to bring more energy when people are back, because it's just, we're going to be that much more excited. And
it's funny, I paid for this training in the beginning of COVID that was talking about recording, and their advice was to slow everything down, to maybe strip down your band to just a guitar, couple people, to lower the key so that it's not as high for you or whatever, which I totally get what he was talking about. But I think especially, it was hard to know that in March of last year that we would still be here in March of this year.
Right.
So I totally get
Yeah.
that. I get his, this kind of sucks and we want to kind of lament together. But this is church coming to people. And I think that this is something we should have been working on long before COVID ever hit. And so like, we want you to experience the worship where you're at. And we have videos of the kids dancing at home in their pajamas with cinnamon rolls and coffee on the coffee table, dogs getting involved, like, and so rather
and you
than
overlay, so you put that video into your worship visual.
I have done stuff like that before.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. But
it is a whole other thing, but it's something I want to name, because like that's a way to do it. That's a way to approach it. I think that's cool.
There have been definitely actions and dancing that we would put on top, clapping. For Silent Night, we took our congregation with candles from their homes all over the place.
We did that too. I think that's awesome.
Into the video of Silent Night. But just getting that feedback of organically, the kids are still jumping around, they're still singing, they still get excited for that. And so just like John said, bringing more energy into it to bring people in. And you still have to like you have to you have to create that sense of engagement when you're leading,
right?
Because it'd be really easy to be like, oh, this is just for a camera, but anything that we've done with drive-throughs, John, you've had this too, like you kind of start to get this, oh, I'm doing this all alone and we're just doing the video, who watches anyway? And then we'll have a drive-through event and hundreds of people come through and everybody is so excited about worship and what we're doing and us coming to them and how they're more engaged now than they've ever been before. And and so like those moments are like, oh yes, we are doing this. And just like, you have to work through that as you're recording, which was not involved, that's not the question, but I just think that's important.
No, that's great. I love it. Those are really good things to name and just to be intentional about. I love that you brought up Silent Night. We did the same thing. We had, we showed a couple people at home doing candles, but then we also like cut to what it's normally like. So like we cut to, our Fargo site, cut to this girl lifting her candle up in the sanctuary of downtown Fargo. And it was this like powerful, like, we're all at home right now doing this. But this is why, is because of this experience that we have when we can be together. And it's the story of Jesus at the end of the day, but it just tugs on those heartstrings, and it just makes it that much more powerful. Ways to use technology to help the experience. I think that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Well, cool. Like Nolan said, next week we're gonna, if you have any questions, first off, about Planning Center, head us up, let us know if you have any questions or any concerns about it, especially in a transition, getting from what you have right now to Planning Center. We've both been through it. We both have done dumb things through it where we're like, oh, we could have just done that the whole time. So don't ever hesitate to reach out on some of those questions.
We're John, where can we learn more tips and tricks and shortcuts on Planning Center?
So we're working on right now an in-depth kind of training and how to best use Planning Center. So hopefully we get that out even in the next couple of weeks. That'll be something that we can, that you can bring your team through, or if you want to help get whoever you need to on board. Hey, we're going to move to this new system. Here's how we're going to do things. We're not going to make Word documents every week. We're not going to send out 13 emails every week anymore. We're not going to make PowerPoints every week, whatever it is. If you need to sell your team on it, if you need just help transitioning and migrating to it, that's what we're creating this for. We want it to be a very easy series that you can walk through and it'll help you get it implemented, and it'll help educate you on everything that it can do. So that'll be coming out here, like I said, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We're working on that right now. And then next week, next Friday, we're gonna do another Q&A addressing in another very common question. We're gonna do it today, but we knew this alone would get us to up to time. But next week, we're going to talk about visual presentation of worship, and that's in person, but also how you can use that exact same system to get your online presentation better. So how do you get words on the screen? How do you do it well? How do you create a system of files and a plan, a system ultimately, so you're not making 13 copies of your PowerPoint and trying to remember where you save them and which version of it is this. But there's a program called ProPresenter that we're going to walk through and talk about very specifically on how to do that. And then we're also putting together a training series on ProPresenter specifically. I got to say, early on, ProPresenter and Planning Center were absolute game changers for Good Shepherd and for my career. They changed how we could lead. They changed how much time you had to spend doing certain things. So those two things, I am so glad were recommended to me early on, and that I could get implemented early on, and then I could really focus on other things from there on out. New music and developing teams and working with people and just doing church, you know. Absolutely. So yeah, next week ProPresenter, and then we're going to make a video training series specifically on ProPresenter and Planning Center that will come out here in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Perfect.
So,
well, that's been great, John.
Yeah,
and everybody.
Thanks for jumping on, whoever's on. And again, make sure you like this page. Go to our YouTube and subscribe there. We're kicking out new content every week, all the time. And we hope it's shareable stuff you can send your team, and it'll just add value as we all learn and grow and do this together.
Perfect. Thanks, John.
All right. Thank you.
God bless.
Bye-bye.